In my last episode, I beat Cuphead without shooting, one of the most difficult challenges I've done in my life. And because on the whole YouTube there are only 2 or 3 videos about this, and one of them is mine, I'm one of the only 3 people who could make this video. This being said, subscribe if you want to see more, and make sure to watch the video where I beat Cuphead without shooting. But if you don't have the time, I'll make in this video a summary about what I did in that one, and how difficult each boss was. The pack rat was actually a difficult fight, because I was just getting used to the new playstyle. But overall, I'll say that the pack rat without shooting is doable and everyone could do it. The only difficult part is the last phase because of the mini carrots, because you'll get hit if you want to destroy them, and you'll get hit if you don't destroy them. Yes, I know how it sounds like, but compared to other bosses, this one is actually doable. And by other bosses I mean Ruby and Crocs. The first phase of this fight was purely atrocious. I had to do it again and again and again and again until I memorized every single pattern of the flies. I killed as many flies as I could with the Western Charm and then got rid of the rest of them with an X attack. It was extremely risky to deal with them with the Western Charm. The second phase was pretty easy and the third phase was a patience test. Based on all of those, I think that the frogs belong in a human tier. Unlike the next boss, Goopy, who was pretty okay-ish. The only difficult part was that he was moving extremely chaotic, and because of this I was risking 1 HP every time I tried to hit him with the Western Charm. Due to this fact, I'll put Goopy in the painful tier. And the next boss on the list is Hilda, who was pretty okay-ish overall. The only difficult part was the last phase. I lost almost all my HP there. And I actually beat her 2 times, because I lost the first recording. Even though Hilda was slightly worse than Goopy, I'll put her in the same tier, the painful one. Cagney Carnation, on the other hand, was brutal on every single phase, and on the last phase I had to use around 5 ultimate attacks in order to take him down. Because of this, Cagney earned his spot in the horrible tier. Let's start the second world with Baroness Von Bonbon. Her minions were okay-ish, but the muffin was horrible. But the last phase with the following castle was totally brutal. I had to dodge so many things in the last phase and hit her so many times that I thought the game glitched. Especially after her head actually glitched and remained on the same spot for a few seconds. I'd say that she deserves her spot in the human tier. Unlike the next boss, Jimmy the Great, who was actually my favorite boss in this challenge, because every single boss, but the puppet one, was pretty decent without shooting. The puppet one was pretty challenging though, but overall, he is a doable boss. The next one on the list is Buffy the Clown. He had the same level of difficulty on every phase overall. Maybe the phase where he is riding the donkey was a little bit harder, and that's because I couldn't damage him with the Western Charm. So was the last phase. And because of this, I'll put him in the horrible tier, next to Cagney Carnation. Now let's move on to the first boss I beat in the first try, the bird. I don't really have anything to say about the bird. It is just painful how long you have to wait until you can damage her. The baby phase was a little bit more difficult, but overall it was just painful. But the dragon was purely atrocious, especially on the last phase. The first 2 were pretty decent, and that's why I can't put him in the atrocious tier, because overall he is just inhuman. Only his last phase is atrocious. The big queen, on the other hand, was pretty decent. All her phases were equally difficult, and I can only think of them as horrible. The next boss on the list is the robot, the boss I was the most afraid of. But contrary to my expectations, the first phase was not that inhuman, I'd say. The second phase was just boring, but the last phase was purely atrocious and monstrous. I did it pretty fast though, so that's why I'll put him in the inhuman tier, even though he's somewhere between atrocious and inhuman. Unlike the crazy actress, who was pretty easy. The only difficult part about this boss was the second phase, but it wasn't that bad to put her in a high tier. Because of this, I'll put her actually at doable. So is the pirate, who had a lot of things to parry, and because of this I got my ultimate attacks and X attacks fast. So the pirate is doable. Tom and Jerry were doable, but just because of the second phase I'll put them in the painful tier. I had to dodge a lot of things and also damage the most with my Weston charm. So, painful tier. Oh boy, but the next one is purely atrocious. Calamaria. This boss is completely monstrous and barbaric from the beginning to the end, with a completely horrific first phase and virtually impossible second phase. And you thought that the final phase is better? No. Purely atrocious from the beginning to the end. So was the first phase of the Phantom Express. Actually, the whole Phantom Express, but the last phase. And kind of the third phase. The third one was pretty decent. But the Phantom Express is going next to Calamaria in the atrocious tier. And now, with only 2 bosses left, we'll start with King Dice, of course, who was completely inhuman. I mean, it would have been inhuman if it wasn't for my Ultra Instinct. All the bosses were pretty difficult and tanky, so I'll just put Dice in the inhuman tier. He's between the inhuman and horrible tier. So is the last boss of this game, the Devil. His first phase is horrible, but is the easiest one out of the 4 phases that he has. The one I want to talk about is the third phase that is purely inhuman and horrific. This phase belongs to the atrocious tier. And the last one, kind of. But I say that I was just bad in the last phase. He belongs to the inhuman tier. So this is my tier list. Probably the only one you'd see based on this subject. I'm Rain, and until next time, thanks for watching.